to end the speech at this point, but the member will have 9 minutes when the subject is before the House after a question period. I do want to remind members that there is quite a bit of a buzz happening right now, and I would just ask people to tone their voices down so that the statements can be heard. Resuming, orders of the day, statements by members. Déclaration des députés. L'honorable député.
The honourable member for Repentigny. Tomorrow will be the 6th anniversary of a shameful moment in the history of Canada, Madam Speaker. On December 12, 2011, Canada announced that it would be the first country to withdraw from the Kyoto Protocol. That is the Christmas present that the Conservative government gave the planet that year. But it's not surprising because Stephen Harper said that Kyoto was a socialist plot. And he even said that the greenhouse gas reduction targets under Kyoto were stupid. Harper preferred to establish his own targets to foster the expansion of the oil sands in Alberta, which he set in 2015. And today, Mr. Harper's not around anymore, but the Liberal government is still using the same targets as the Conservatives, which ones had been specifically designed to not meet the standards. The targets of a climate change skeptic government, which marked the history of Canada by making Canada the first country to withdraw from the Kyoto Protocol.
For Pickering, Uxbridge.
Mr. Speaker, I want to remind Canadians that not everyone has a safe place to call home this holiday season. A recent article by Gillian Fuller highlighted the grave situation facing Durham Region's women's shelters. Over 1,000 women have been turned away from our shelters because they were already operating at overcapacity this year. In 1 year, Durham's 4 shelters housed 608 women and 320 children, fielding over 5,000 calls to their crisis lines. Our region has also seen 3 domestic homicides in 2017. These trends are extremely alarming. So, as we prepare for the holidays, I ask residents in my community to keep these women and children fleeing violence in their minds by showing their support for local organizations. One initiative, the Mitten Tree at Pickering Public Library, is collecting mittens, hats, gloves, scarves, and toiletries for Horizon House's women's shelter. If we were to stop this trend, we need men and women to become leaders in ending violence against women. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Banff Airdrie.
Well, Mr. Speaker, Christmas is a wonderful time to focus on our charitable giving. And Canadians are extremely generous, and there's nowhere that's more evident than in our communities. There's 2 groups that I want to mention and congratulate today: the 100 Women Who Care, with chapters in Cochrane, Airdrie, and Bow Valley, and 100 Men Who Give a Damn in Cochrane and Airdrie. These 2 great organizations show what a big difference can be made when people work together towards a common goal. Once every quarter, these organizations meet and they hear pitches from local charities, and the group then votes for one of the charities to receive the money. Each participant kicks in $100 per meeting, resulting in tens of thousands of dollars raised throughout the year. Now, often all of the charities end up receiving support when members step up to give a little extra, as was evidenced in the first meeting of the Airdrie Men, thanks to Bill Martin and others. And I want to thank all of those who have joined me in being a part of either the 100 Women or the 100 Men, and hope that their spirit of charity and generosity is spread across the country during this Christmas season.
The honourable member for Eglinton Lawrence.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Officially opened its doors in October 1980, it fulfilled a dream of the Italian-Canadian community. That dream started with a vision where youth and seniors, art and science, politics and faith could all come together in a cultural space which we could call our own. Over the years, the Piazza has hosted prime ministers, Supreme Court justices, cardinals, academics and musicians, even Luciano Pavarotti. Transcending these events are the families who come every day to see their nonas. Both of mine lived at Villa Colombo, or to drop off their kids at childcare or Centro Scuola, or for a workout, or just to have an espresso at Cinquecento. As the city grows, any case for development must respect the voices of the community first. Those voices are loud and clear. Do not tear down the Columbus Centre. It's more than just bricks and mortar. It's the heart of the Italian-Canadian community in Toronto. A dream that began with 1 million acts of kindness is now a cherished institution worth fighting for. Listen to the community. Siamo con voi.
Bravo. L'honorable député.
The honourable member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Mr. Speaker, recently I had the opportunity to visit a number of Christmas markets in my riding of Berthier-Masquinongé. Christmas markets are an excellent opportunity to discover and rediscover the local products and crafts. These events also highlight the quality of our agri-food products, as well as the talent of our artists and artisans in the regions. By buying local, consumers are choosing quality products, committing to their community, and reducing their environmental footprint. So in the beginning of this Christmas period, I encourage you to go with your family to visit Christmas markets and local businesses in your regions. In closing, Mr. Speaker, we must also remember the exceptional contribution of volunteers in our regions and communities who make all the difference. Thanks for your generosity and collaboration in order to improve the lives of people in our regions. I wish all of you a wonderful holiday season. Thank you.
The honourable member for York Centre.
Glory in red, an ode to Toronto FC. The sun was setting on Saturday night as our boys in red took the field, shining so bright. A superlative season did lie in their wake, but this was the big game, an opportunity for redemption at stake. We were flying in the first half, keeping Seattle pinned back, but sadly no goals, even though we dominated attack. The second half kicked off, TFC in full flight, then in a moment of glory, Altador struck with great might. The celebration was wild. The fans, they did roar. Red Patch Boys, Tribal Rhythm Nation, U-Sector, and so many more. As the clock wound down, Vasquez put it away, ensuring TFC fans would never forget this championship day. As the lads raised the cup, our hearts filled with delight, our heroes got it done on this unforgettable night. So here is my message as I wrap up this short ditty. Your hard work and commitment bring tremendous pride to our city. As we end 2017, this year put to bed, we will forever have memories of our TFC champs, of their glory in red.
Hey, good job. Sounds as a member for Cape Breton Council has some competition around here. The honourable member for Provencher.
Mr. Speaker, as we approach the end of the year in which Canada has celebrated its 150th birthday, we have much to be thankful for. Thankful for the blessings of freedom, peace, and abundance. We should not take these blessings for granted, but we should guard against their erosion. Broadcaster Paul Harvey noted that many of the world's great nations were at the height of their greatness at the 150-year mark, before they decayed morally, socially, culturally, and economically. Rights without responsibility and freedoms without restraint are recipes for disaster. We must be careful not to rewrite history and imply that our own forefathers' intentions were somehow less noble than our own. We can't afford to replace the rewards of ambition with reliance of the state. We must emphasize the family as the core of a strong society, not government. Canada is a nation founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God and the rule of law. We must continually recognize the absolutes of good and evil, right and wrong. As we look toward 2018, let us commit to re-embrace the principles that have made Canada great.
The honourable member for Etobicoke Centre.
Mr. Speaker, in December 1917, 100 years ago, the Crimean Tatars proclaimed their democratic republic and launched their National Assembly, the Kurultai. The Bolsheviks abolished this state, and in 1944, Stalin attempted ethnocide through the mass deportation of Crimean Tatars into Central Asia. Almost half perished during the deportation. However, starting in 1989, Crimean Tatars began returning home, and under independent Ukraine were provided citizenship and a formal right of return. Sadly, history seems to be repeating itself. With Russia's 2014 military invasion and illegal occupation, the Crimean Tatars are once again facing disappearances, the murders of leaders, exile, and collective repression and persecution. As we commemorate the centenary of the Crimean Tatar Kurultai, let us reaffirm the Crimean Tatars are the indigenous people of Crimea, and Crimea is Ukraine.
The honourable member for Hamilton East Stony Creek.
Mr. Speaker, the city of Hamilton remains in shock and sorrow over the tragic and needless loss of a teenage Good Samaritan. Yusuf al-Hasnawi died after trying to help an older person who was being threatened on the street by two young men. Yusuf was a 19-year-old Brock University student whose family came from Iraq to Canada to escape the violence in their homeland. His Muslim faith and his parents taught him to help others in need, as is stated in the Quran. As he stood between the older man and the assailants, a gun was pulled, a shot was fired, and within an hour, Yusuf succumbed to a bullet wound in the head, gone from the earth, gone from his family, his community, and his future. Let the Hasnawi family know, my colleagues here in Parliament today, that an attack on one is an attack on all.
The honourable member for Caribou Prince George.
Mr. Speaker, all too often we take for granted those who stand ready to give their lives for us. We live safely knowing that they stand at the ready to put themselves in harm's way. The brave men and women who are our paramedics, our firefighters, our police officers, and our Canadian forces, they put their uniforms on every day knowing full well that in their service to our country and to our community, they may experience human tragedy and that they themselves may pay the ultimate sacrifice. These men and women have an almost mythical aura that defies the day-to-day. But beyond the reality, that is our perceptions, our heroes are, like the rest of us, only human. They're not immune to the horrific circumstances they experience. It takes a toll. I, along with the member from Elgin, Middlesex, London, invite you all tonight to attend the premiere of the documentary, The Other Side of Hero. The other side of the hero takes us into the world of our first responders that we rarely see, life beyond the uniform. I hope you all will join us tonight at the Sir John A. Macdonald Building in room 200 at 7 p.m. Thank you.
The honourable member for Vimy. There are a few things as admirable as risking your life for someone else. On May 7th, Luc Vincent did not hesitate for a moment to put his life on the line to try to save someone else when a car plunged into and eventually submerged under the waters of Lake de Montagne. And Mr. Vincent returned with a boat and other assistants who continued to try and save the trapped individual despite suffering from effects of hypothermia from the freezing water. His heroism and selflessness should not be forgotten. For Mr. Vincent and others who have had to think fast and put their own well-being on the line, thank you for your courage. Sometimes altruism can change or save a life.
Bravo, Luc. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for London North Centre.
Mr. Speaker, Greeks in Canada have a proud legacy as entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, and community leaders. Indeed, our country is home to over 250,000 Canadians of Greek heritage. As we reflect on Canada's 150th year, I'd like to highlight the legacy of a Greek explorer. Ioannis Fokas was born on the Greek island of Kefalonia in 1536. He was an experienced sailor who undertook missions on behalf of the Spanish court under the name of Juan de Fuca to what is modern-day China, the Philippines, and Mexico. He's best known for exploring the area that now bears his name, the Strait of Juan de Fuca between Vancouver Island and northwestern Washington state. Geologic wonders such as the Juan de Fuca Ridge, the Juan de Fuca Plate, and the Juan de Fuca Provincial Park on Vancouver Island's west coast are all named after him. On behalf of all Canadians of Greek and Kefalonian heritage, of which I am one, I salute the memory of Juan de Fuca. Zito Elas, Zito Kefalonia, Zito Kanadas. Ευχαριστώ, κύριε Πρόεδρε.
Zito!
The honourable member for Parry Sound, Muskoka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to recognize International Human Rights Day, which was observed yesterday, December 10th. While there are numerous examples, of course, of human rights abuses that deserve to be highlighted, I would like to emphasize the current human rights situation in the Republic of Artsakh, or Nagorno-Karabakh. I traveled to the region this summer with One Free World International and observed firsthand the conflict there and the horrific human rights abuses inflicted upon people who ultimately only wish to live in peace. We met with mothers who had lost sons and who had lost servicemen and others in the conflict. I was on site of some scenes of unspeakable horror. Mr. Speaker, I have hope for a peaceful and prosperous Artsakh where people can live side by side with their neighbors, including Azerbaijan. The Artsakh conflict is currently mediated through the Organization of Security and Cooperation in Europe, where Canada is a full member, and I urge the government to condemn human rights abuses in the region and work to deter further escalation of the conflict. Thank you.
The honourable member for La Salle-Mar.
Chief Justice and the first woman to lead the court, will officially retire from the Supreme Court of Canada. Originaire de Pincher Creek, Alberta,
Originaire of Pincher Creek, Alberta, she studied philosophy and law at University of Alberta
and British Columbia before joining the Faculty of Law at UBC in 1974. Her 36-year judicial career, Mr. Speaker, started in 1981 when she was first appointed to the Vancouver County Court. Puis de la Cour suprême de la Colombie-Britannique à
Then, from the Supreme Court of BC to the Court of Appeal, she was named puisne judge by Brian Mulroney to the Supreme Court of Canada on March 30th, 1989, and was appointed Chief Justice of Canada on January 7th, 2000 by Jean Chrétien. Mr. Speaker, after 28 years on the bench of the highest court in the land, including 17 as Chief Justice, Beverly McLaughlin will be hanging up her robe.
She has been a real leader for our court and our country and a great Canadian judicial ambassador abroad. We will remember her sense of humor and her joie de vivre, and as she enjoys true moments of happiness when cooking for her family and friends using fresh vegetables.
The honourable member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is with great pride and humility that I stand to pay tribute to the wisdom, courage, and determination of the Wet'suwet'en and Gitxsan leaders of northern British Columbia. Today marks the 20th anniversary of the landmark Supreme Court decision known as Delgamuukw-Gisdaywa. After generations of struggle, these elders stood in our highest court and won not only a victory for their nations, but also for First Nations across Canada. By proving that oral history must have equal standing in our courts, Delgamuukw tore down a stone from the wall of legal and colonial oppression. That day 20 years ago didn't just change the history of Canada, it changed our very idea of history. It has been said that the arc of the moral universe is long but bends towards justice. And while the history of the federal government with respect to this land's First Peoples is filled with shame, the struggle for justice is of a far greater power. Today we honor the Wet'suwet'en and Gitxsan elders for their determination in opening all our eyes to a more just and beautiful country.
Honourable member for Calgary Confederation.
Mr. Speaker, the eyes of Canada's curling world were focused on the Roar of the Rings tournament this past weekend in Ottawa that featured teams from across Canada. Olympic spots were on the line. I was there and the competition was fierce. The fans were passionate. It was a curling competition at its best. After many games, lots of cheering, agonizing losses, and triumphant victories, it was down to the finals on Sunday. For the women, the final match saw Team Homan of Ottawa best Calgary's Chelsea Karen, Kathy Overton Clapham, Jocelyn Peterman, and Lane Peters. On the men's side, Manitoba's Team McEwen was bested by Calgary's finest. A hearty congratulations to Calgary's skip Kevin Cooey and his team of Mark Kennedy, Brett Lang, and Ben Hebert. You're off to the Olympics. Calgary and the rest of Canada will be cheering for you every step of the way.
Honourable member for Scarborough Rouge Park.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to mark International Human Rights Day, a day to reflect on the enormous strides we have made in advancing human rights both in Canada and around the world. It is also a day to recommit to ensuring that the principles outlined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights are fulfilled. This sesquicentennial year, Canadians celebrated the 35th anniversary of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and we've advanced human rights by accepting the United Nations Declarations on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples through a historic apology to the LGBTQ2 community for past wrongs, the introduction of a national housing strategy that views human rights, that looks at housing as a fundamental human right, and a meeting of federal, provincial, territorial ministers on human rights, first such gathering in 29 years. Human rights are universal, indivisible, interdependent, and interrelated. As Canadians, we need to strive towards the attainment of human rights for all. It is the greatest legacy we can leave our children. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions orales, oral questions. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is currently under investigation because he accepted a free trip, and the finance minister is under investigation on a conflict of interest regarding his pension bill. The ethics commissioner is so busy with the Liberals that we don't know if she'll have time to wrap up her investigations by the end of her term. Will the Prime Minister commit to making sure that those investigations will continue once the ethics commissioner is replaced? The Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, as I have often said, I have recused myself from any discussions regarding the appointment of the next Ethics Commissioner. Furthermore, 4 members of our staff have also put up a screen to not participate in those discussions. My team, however, will continue to support the House Leader and their staff in the same way that all other ministers' offices are supported in the hundreds of appointments made. The Honourable, the Leader of the Opposition.
I understand how inconvenient it is for the Cabinet that the Prime Minister can't answer these questions because he's under investigation. But Canadians need to know, normally a new Ethics Commissioner would be appointed by government after consulting with the opposition and a parliamentary committee hearing for the nominee. But the Liberals are trying to ram this appointment through. So if the Prime Minister can't answer this himself, is there someone over there who can make the commitment that members of Parliament will have the opportunity to interview the nominee for the Ethics Commissioner before the appointment is official?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, after 10 years of the kind of patronage that the previous government put forward, we put forward an independent, merit-based process for government appointments. This ensures that government appointments are not only of the highest quality, but reflect the range and scope of experiences and diversity that makes Canada strong. But I know that every member of this House relies on the impartial and expert advice that the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner will give, and I have utmost confidence that the Government House Leader is managing this appointment process appropriately and as must be expected.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, during their election campaign, the Prime Minister promised that no veteran would be forced to fight his own government for any compensation they had a right to. For 2 years now, the veterans have had to fight this Prime Minister. We learned that since the end of March, the backlog for veterans waiting for their disability awards has increased by 50%. Our veterans deserve respect because they fought for their country. Why does this Prime Minister not defend them? The Right Honourable the Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, here is what did happen. For 10 years, the Conservative government closed veterans' offices, spent their time in benefiting from the appearance of the veterans while not giving them the services they had a right to. For 2 years now, we have reopened those offices. We have invested far more money and more insistence for these veterans. And veterans are coming forward with their proposals. They lost hope under the previous government, but now they're coming back into our system, and that's a good thing.
Mr. Speaker, like many Canadians, veterans are now realizing that this Prime Minister said just about anything during the campaign to get elected. It's this government's record that has resulted in an increase of 50% for the backlogs of these cases. That's on him and his government, nobody else's. The Defence Ombudsman has made simple, easy recommendations to improve the transition of our armed forces members onto the Veterans Affairs payroll, and this Prime Minister has yet to act on any of them. When will he start listening to the advice of experts and stand up for our vets?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it's fairly straightforward what happened. So many veterans had abandoned the idea of getting help under the previous government that now that we are actually putting in place systems and benefits that they can access, reopening offices that they shuttered, more and more veterans are coming forward to claim what this government and all governments owe them. This is a good thing, Mr. Speaker, and what's great is that we have been tooling up over the past years so that we can give all the veterans who entitle it what they have. That veterans be coming forward to claim their benefits.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Only to a Liberal would increasing spending and getting worse results be a good thing. Canadians are sick of this kind of attitude. But it's not just veterans who are realizing that this government has had a mean-spirited and cold-hearted attitude towards them. Those who have applied for disability tax credits have realized it as well. Now, just last week, the Revenue Minister told this House, and I quote, "I would like to reassure all Canadians who receive the disability tax credit that the eligibility criteria have not changed." But on Friday, her parliamentary secretary apologized for that very change, which saw 80% of applicants see their claims denied. So can the Prime Minister explain, if there wasn't a policy change, exactly what did his government apologize for?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as a government, we are committed to ensuring that citizens get all the benefits to which they are entitled. That is something we've been focused on over the past 2 years, and that is something that we are delivering on. We have heard that some of the clarification letter has resulted in negative impacts, and that's why we are making looking at it carefully to ensure that indeed we're getting the delivery of services that Canadians expect.
The honourable member for Rimouski-Nejet-Témiscouata-Les-Basques. Mr. Speaker, the government has been in office for 2 years, and yet the situation of veterans is only getting worse. They have to take responsibility. It is the Canadian government's duty to make sure that those who serve their country are not simply left to their fate. 71% of veterans are still waiting for more than 3 months before getting their pension. That leaves them in a financial limbo, which has profound and negative consequences. Can the Prime Minister make sure that pensions and support for veterans and their families be in place before they leave the Army? The Right Honourable, the Prime Minister. Over the past 2 years, we have done considerable work to restore services to our veterans and that they expect and deserve. There is still work to do, and we acknowledge that there are veterans who are now sending in their applications into a system that have been literally abandoned under Conservatives, and that's why we're working so hard to meet requirements. We've opened up 9 service points for our veterans, and we will continue to work for our veterans so that the sacrifice and their service does not remain unacknowledged.
Mr. Speaker, with less than a third of cases actually meeting departmental targets, this government is merely paying lip service to veterans. The department remains understaffed thanks to Conservative cuts and the Liberals' failure to hire enough staff to meet increased demands. And, Mr. Speaker, veterans are still waiting to hear what this government's new promised pension scheme will be. What's the delay? Where's the plan? Will the minister release his plan for our country's veterans before the House rises? Yes.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the fact is we have worked very, very hard over the past 2 years to restore the kinds of benefits that our veterans deserved and that they didn't get under 10 years of a Conservative government. There is much to do, and there continues to be more to do, and we look forward to continuing to work with veterans groups to ensure that the new lifelong pension is restored to the level that everyone can expect. These are the kinds of things that we know need to happen, and they need to happen right, and that's why we're taking it so very, very seriously.
Honourable member for Rimouski-Nejet-Témiscouata-Les-Basques.
Across the country, and the principle of a free and democratic press is actually in jeopardy. The favoritism this government is showing to American digital giants, such as Netflix, is a large part of the problem. After confusingly defending her scheme, the Heritage Ministers threw the ball in the Finance Minister's court, who left her hanging by confirming that he will continue giving Netflix a free pass. With his cabinet in disarray on this issue, the Prime Minister must step in and defend the press. Will he do it?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the first thing we did when we came into office was lower taxes on the middle class and raise them on the wealthiest 1%. So despite what the Conservatives and the NDP propose, we will not be raising taxes on Canadians.
The honourable member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Heritage came back to Montreal on Friday to say the same thing she said 2 months ago, except that this time she added that she hears Quebec and that she will no longer defend the tax break for Netflix and that we'll have to speak to the Minister of Finance. While Quebec is unanimous in condemning special tax credit, special tax treatment for Netflix and other web giants, unions, business people, everyone. What did the Minister of Finance say? No, that's pathetic. That's how important the Quebec consensus is for this government, for this Prime Minister? Can they do more than just go on at UNESCO and not stand up for our culture? I would encourage members to be wise in their use of language. The Right Honourable the Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It has been a pleasure for me to be able to travel throughout Quebec and to Lac-Saint-Jean over the past few months, where I had an opportunity to speak to people about their priorities. And I can tell you, there was not a single Quebecer who told me to increase their taxes. Even though the Conservatives and the NDP want to increase taxes for consumers, we will not increase taxes on consumers. We will continue to lower taxes for the middle class and increase them for the wealthiest, but not for ordinary people. Honourable Member for Richmond-Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, on the 1st of January, in a few days, tax changes will come into effect and negatively impact our small and medium-sized businesses because they have not received the details of these changes. Tax experts have been clear. It's too late. The minister will be taking even more money out of their pockets. With Christmas coming, this looks awfully like a poisoned gift. Why doesn't the minister give a real gift to Canadians? And why doesn't the Prime Minister give them a gift and dismiss his Minister of Finance and stop attacking our job creators? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I can reassure my colleague that the details on our tax changes and on income sprinkling will be announced soon, imminently, actually. And I would like to recall to my colleague that our goal here is not to have an impact on family businesses, but to have more tax fairness in the system. It is not fair that the wealthiest be able to incorporate in order to be able to save the equivalent of the average salary of a Canadian, $48,000. Now, I know this is very difficult for the Conservatives to understand. The Honourable Member for Richmond-Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, please allow me to read from one of the hundreds of letters that I received at my office. It says this: I am shocked to learn that our Minister of Finance intends on completely disregarding the fundamental right of all citizens to do the necessary tax planning for their financial affairs. Small and medium-sized owners are the ones who will be penalized. This is a double injustice, bad tax reform, and no time to plan. What a lack of responsibility, and what hypocrisy on the part of the minister. He should do the right thing and resign. This is from an angry citizen, Pierre. The Honourable the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, on the contrary, our goal has always been to make sure that a member of a family working in a family business continue to be able to work. We just want to bring more tax fairness where there are undue advantages for certain Canadians that middle-class Canadians do not have access to. All SME owners will benefit from a lower tax, 10.5 to 9% by 2019, because we recognize the importance of businesses in our prosperity.
House Leader.
With only 3 weeks left until these tax changes come into effect, the Minister of Finance refuses to tell small businesses what effect they will have on them. He says it's no big deal. Well, we know it's not a big deal for the minister because he's got his millions sheltered from taxes in offshore accounts and numbered companies. But it's a big deal to local small businesses who are trying to deal with these hypocritical and unfair Liberal tax changes. Why is the Minister of Finance so disrespectful to our small business owners?
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to reassure my colleague from the opposition that the details will be coming in very shortly. Our objective here is to bring more tax fairness to a system where there are inequities built in the system. Our objective is also to always support the family business model. We have no intention to impact the family members who work in a business. And I might also remind the member that what's good for small businesses is the fact that we've reduced taxes for small businesses from 11 to 10.5 to eventually 9% by 2019. And we've had the growth in Canada, the fastest in the G7, and 600,000 jobs created. That's good for all businesses. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Well, remember the last time that the Liberals said that these small business increases were no big deal and they shouldn't worry? Well, remember, that did not go so well for the Liberals. Have the Liberals learned absolutely nothing? They're punishing small businesses again, not just with this hypocritical tax increase, but by the minister ignoring their very substantial questions for some information. The Minister of Finance always seems to be hiding something, doesn't he? What is he hiding now from small business owners?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, our objective here is, and we'll always stand behind the family business model. We've reduced taxes for small businesses from 11 to 10.5% and to 9% by 2019. That's because we realize the importance of small businesses to contribute to the prosperity and to the growth of Canada, and we have great results. Our plan is working, Mr. Speaker. We've got the fastest growth in the G7, 600,000 jobs created in the last 2 years, most of them full-time, and that's the work of this finance minister and this government, supporting small business owners from coast to coast to coast. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Carleton.
The Finance Minister plans a reasonableness test to determine what small businesses can pay their family members. Here's what the former Chief Justice of the Tax Court says about it. I think it's going to substantially increase the number of cases that go to the court because it's going to be a battle between the CRA and the taxpayers as to what reasonable means in various situations. How much will this cobweb of rules cost CRA to enforce, small businesses to comply, and both of them to litigate?
More litigation. Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we heard Canadians and entrepreneurs from one ocean to the other. We reviewed their applications over the past few months, and we looked at the details on income sprinkling, which will be announced very soon.
Mr. Speaker, the question was for the Finance Minister. He is the one who says he's going to impose a reasonableness test on what family businesses can pay their family members. But it's not just the past Chief Justice of the Tax Court. The current Chief Justice, in an extraordinary comment, has said that these rules are so vague that no one will know how to enforce them or interpret them. Why doesn't the government listen to the judges and the small business and do away with this complex web of tax increases?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I've mentioned, and it'll be my pleasure to work with the member opposite to explain the details when the details are known, and these details regarding income sprinkling should be known eminently, Mr. Speaker, and we will always stand behind small business owners. That's why we've reduced the small business tax rate from 11% down to 9% by 2019, Mr. Speaker, because we recognize the importance of small business. We'll always be behind the family business model, and we want to continue to work to make sure that prosperity is trickling down to everyone in this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order. Order. The member for Carleton will come to order, please. Honorable Député de...
The Honourable Member for Sherbrooke. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the special tax treatment Netflix gets, the Minister of Finance has once again closed the door in the faces of Quebecers. And who was there right in front? The Minister of Heritage. Obviously, her voice doesn't carry much weight in Cabinet. And the voices of Liberal members from Quebec neither. The Minister of Heritage says one thing and the Minister of Finance says another. Perhaps someone has to get their act together in the government. When will the government stop ignoring a consensus in Quebec? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Heritage. Mr. Speaker, our government has always been clear and our position has not changed. We hear the concerns of the Francophone cultural sector and we want to reassure them and recall that we have made historic investments to support our culture. We have massively invested in arts and cultures, more than $2.3 billion. And we've reinvested in the media fund to support production and television. These investments have had a concrete impact on the lives of our artists.
Diana Louvain.
Mr. Speaker, the federal government has aggravated the crisis in local media by slashing its own advertising in Canadian publications while pouring millions of dollars into American digital giants. In a report tabled last week, the Government Operations Committee unanimously recommended increasing the share of federal advertising from Canadian publications. Well, will the government follow this all-party recommendation to support our local media and reach more Canadians?
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister to the President of the Treasury Board.
The government took another step to making government more open and transparent and accountable by delivering on our commitment to eliminate partisan advertising and modernize its communications. We now have a process in place for conducting independent reviews of paid government advertising to ensure it's nonpartisan. And in addition to that, Mr. Speaker, we have reduced the spending budget by 50% on advertising compared to the previous Conservative government with their partisan advertising. We're proud of what we're doing, and we appreciate the work of the committee in looking at the advertising budget for the future years.
Député de Louis Saint-Laurent.
Honourable Member for Louis Saint-Laurent. Mr. Speaker, on May 2nd, an internal email in the CRA showed that 80% of those applying for the disability tax credit had been denied. What was the result? Well, last Friday, the CRA announced that it would be reassessing all those denials. What is that? Well, that's an admission of guilt on the part of the government. However, there's one thing lacking still. That's honour. Can someone in this government stand up and say to individuals with diabetes, we apologize? Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of National Revenue.
Mr. Speaker, our objective has always been clear, ensuring that Canadians have access to the credits that they're eligible to. With the reinstatement of Disability Advisory Committee, the agency will have a formal advisory process to work on improving the accessibility of its services to Canadians with disabilities. We're giving these groups back their seat at the table, Mr. Speaker, which the Conservatives took away in 2006. This formal process will ensure that any future actions taken by the agency are made in consultation with stakeholders. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint-Laurent. Mr. Speaker, it didn't take a committee to solve this situation. When we were in power, 80% of applications were accepted. When they came into power, 80% were denied. 23 times, Mr. Speaker, in this House, the Minister of Revenue has said no changes were made to the rules. Last Friday, her department said exactly the opposite. So, my question is the same. Will someone in this government be honourable enough to stand up and say to those suffering from diabetes, we apologize, we were wrong?
Mr. Speaker, as a registered nurse, I know how important it is to have vulnerable groups to have their voices heard. With the announcement of the Disability Advisory Committee last week, we will make sure that in the case when it comes to how the agency administers the credits and benefits for people with disabilities, following concerns raised by Canadians, the agency is evaluating applications to determine whether or not there has been an impact in the delivery of DTC. We will continue to take steps to improve the agency's services to all Canadians, particularly the most vulnerable in our country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Calgary Rocky Ridge.
Mr. Speaker, after 2 months of questions from the opposition and pressure from Diabetes Canada, the Liberals have finally said that they will revert to their pre-May 2nd policy. The strange thing is that even while the minister reverses her policy, she continues to deny that she ever made a change in the first place. Will the minister finally admit that she made a choice to deny the credit, she's now trying to cover her tracks, and will she apologize to type 1 diabetics?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of National Revenue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our government is committed to ensuring that all Canadians who are eligible for the credits and benefits have access to them. Following concerns raised by Canadians, the agency is evaluating applications to determine whether or not there has been an impact in the delivery of DTC. Through the Disability Advisory Committee, disability advocates, medical professionals, Indigenous advocates, and other important stakeholders will now have consulted on how agency can improve its services to Canadians with disabilities. Unlike the previous government, Mr. Speaker, we want these groups at the table. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Calgary Rocky Ridge.
Mr. Speaker, during a meeting with stakeholders on November 30th, the minister insisted that there was no evidence that there had been any change to the disability tax credit. During that same meeting, type 1 diabetics produced the evidence. They showed her documents that proved that the eligibility criteria had changed. This minister's treatment of diabetics has been terrible. Will she finally quit fighting type 1 diabetics and apologize for her appalling conduct?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, again, let me be absolutely clear. The law and the eligibility criteria for disability tax credit has not changed. We will continue to improve the accessibility of this credit to Canadians, and we have already taken extremely important actions. We have simplified the application form. We have allowed more nurse practitioners to certify these patients' applications. And with the restatement of the Disability Advisory Committee, we are bringing stakeholders back at the table to better determine how we can improve access even more. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Saint-Hyacinthe.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Fagot. Mr. Speaker, Le Courrier de Saint-Hyacinthe, which has been published since 1853, is the oldest French-language newspaper in the Americas. It is a member of the Coalition for the Survival of the Printed Press in Quebec. These are pillars of our democracy. Local media in our ridings are now having to deal with a significant drop in their advertising revenue, and this to digital giants. When will this government support the print press as it has done with other industries? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, we know that newspaper content, reliable newspaper content, is necessary for a healthy democracy. Canadians appreciate local media, and we intend to continue to support them. We have already announced that we will modernize things in order to help the print press in both digital format and paper.
2 weeks ago, we learned that more than 30 local and community newspapers throughout Ontario will shut down. These newspapers employ 291 people who will all lose their jobs. Some of these local papers have been publishing since the 1800s. People of Essex are lucky to still have their community news. But if the attitude of this heritage minister, who says the Liberals won't bail out local media, doesn't change, all MPs will have local newspapers in their communities shut down. How can the minister continue to sit back and do nothing when Canadians are losing jobs and their news sources?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, our thoughts are with the workers and their families affected by the cuts in the print media industry. Canadians value local news, and our government will continue to support it. We know that reliable journalistic content is critical to a healthy democracy. We've already announced that we will be modernizing our programs to better support local media in both paper and digital formats. Our approach will be to support innovation, adaptation, and transition to the digital era. This is something that our government takes very seriously.
The Honourable Member for Brossard-Saint-Lambert. Mr. Speaker, yesterday we talked about the anniversary of the signature of the Declaration of Human Rights. Now, our first program on housing is a demonstration of the government's progressive attitude towards creating appropriate housing. We know what this means for every Canadian. The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to start by congratulating my colleague for her extraordinary work on behalf of her citizens. The right to housing is an essential right which should be guaranteed to all Canadians, and this is the first housing strategy which should help to cut 50% of homelessness in Canada because many Canadians cannot find affordable housing. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are happy that we're back with a housing policy to help them.
Mr. Speaker, the clock continues to tick on 3 important investigations by the Ethics Commissioner, 2 of the Prime Minister's conflict of interest holiday violations, and of course the most recent of several involving the Finance Minister. But as Canadians wait patiently for the Commissioner to report, her spokesperson says if those reports aren't completed before she leaves office in coming weeks, it will be up to her unnamed successor to continue, restart or abandon those investigations. Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister commit to appointing someone who will continue these important investigations?
Government House Leader.
Speaker, our government values the work of the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner, and we have put in place a new appointment process which supports an open, transparent, and merit-based selection that is open to all Canadians to apply. We have confidence in this process, and it is from this process that a nominee will be named. This selection process requires a comprehensive approach. We will not undermine the process. The government has a responsibility to put forward a nominee, and we take that responsibility very seriously. We are committed to identifying the most qualified candidate through this process as quickly as possible. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Thornhill.
Well, Mr. Speaker, delay is the deadliest form of denial. And Canadians can clearly see by the Liberals' unacceptable delay in appointing a new ethics commissioner, by the PM's flippant disregard of the ethics laws and regulations fundamental to this House, that ethical practices are discretional for Liberals. But, Mr. Speaker, Canadians deserve rulings on the ethical lapses of the PM and his finance minister. Will he commit to appointing a new ethics commissioner who will continue these important investigations?
Government House Leader.
As I have just responded, we have put in place a new process, an open, transparent, merit-based appointment process in which Canadians are eligible to apply, as all positions are posted online. We look forward to the outcomes of this process and putting forward a name. We look forward to working with opposition parties to ensure that the new nominee can start to work as soon as possible. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, the government's many ethical problems make the appointment of a new ethics commissioner a priority for Canadians. And Canadians need assurance that this is not a partisan appointment. Mr. Speaker, can the Liberals assure us that the next ethics commissioner will continue the current investigations regarding the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister? Mr. Speaker, we appreciate the work of the Ethics Commissioner, and we have put in place a new procedure for appointments, and this is based on openness, transparency, and merit-based. It's open to all Canadians interested in stepping forward to present their candidacy, and we trust in this procedure, and we will be using this procedure to appoint the next person. We'll try to go forward as soon. We're doing as much as we can to find the best qualified candidates. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
River Northern Rockies.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Ethics Commissioner's term expires on January 8th, and she hasn't finished her investigation into the Prime Minister's holiday to Billionaire Island. She hasn't finished her investigations into the Finance Minister's multiple conflicts of interest either. Sad. We have no commitment from this government that she will complete these investigations by January 8th. And we have no guarantee that the new Ethics Commissioner will pick up these investigations where she left off. What assurances can this government give that this ethics investigations into the Prime Minister, and the Finance Minister won't simply be swept under the rug?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, as I have said, that our government values the work of the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner, and that's something we will always continue to do. I actually encourage members opposite to actually have regard for those offices and the important work they do, and we have an open, transparent, merit-based selection process. We have confidence in that process, and we know that we will be putting forward a name that will work hard for all Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Hamilton Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, a year ago I wrote to the Finance Minister asking him to use his meeting with the country's finance ministers to fix his flawed CPP enhancement legislation and restore the dropout provisions for child rearing and those living with disabilities. Despite promising to bring it up as a priority with his counterparts, we have not heard of any results to date. Is this another item to the list of hollow promises from this government? Simple question. Will the Finance Minister use today's meeting to do the right thing and finally fix the problem which will affect 14 million Canadians?
The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm proud to be part of a government which has as a priority the well-being of our seniors, not only today, but with upcoming generations. The Minister of Finance, working in partnership with provinces and territories, put in place in 2016 a historical agreement to improve Canada's CPP to make sure that 25% of Canadians have financial security in the future. We're working hard with our partners to make sure that these improvements help as many Canadians as possible. The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, the fact that the dropout provisions are not among the changes in the CPP, this will affect 14 million Canadians, especially women and disabled persons. The NDP has been putting this question forward for more than a year, but the Liberals have still done nothing, and yet they've had the time to correct this important omission. Will the minister roll up his sleeves for women and disabled persons and raise this question at the next minister's meeting? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm delighted to be part of a government which has cut senior poverty by many people, by increasing the GIS and putting the age at 77. We're trying to get seniors out of poverty, and our government this very day is working with provinces and territories to make sure the CPP is more flexible, is more generous for generations to come.
Yesterday was Human Rights Day. Female genital mutilation is a human rights violation. Even though FGM is a crime in many countries, the practice continues because it's allowed to be shrouded in silence, and victims can face stigma or much worse if they come forward. This is why Plan International charges us with raising awareness of the problem. With reports of FGM practitioners entering Canada, will the minister reverse his decision to remove listing FGM as an intolerable practice from Canada's Citizenship Guide?
Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, the assertion by the member opposite is completely inaccurate. To be clear, the content of the new guide has not been finalized. We're engaging, unlike the previous government, we're engaging with a range of stakeholders and subject matter experts to make sure that the new guide better captures the contributions of women, the role of Indigenous people, and members of the LGBTQ2 communities and Francophone communities. I'll remind the member opposite that it was her party that actually removed any references to the LGBTQ2 community rights, including anti-discrimination laws, from the Citizenship Guide.
Honourable Member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
The government that first included LGBTQ rights in Canada's Citizenship Guide. Mr. Speaker, a leaked copy of Canada's new Citizenship Guide removed references to female genital mutilation. I do not understand why this minister can't just condemn this process. It's ridiculous. Mr. Speaker, will the minister finally commit to reversing his decision to remove listing FGM as an intolerable practice from Canada's Citizenship Guide? This is a no-brainer.
Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, the assertion by the member opposite that we have removed anything from a final citizenship guide is completely inaccurate. Just to be clear, the content for the new guide has not been finalized. Unlike the party opposite, we actually listened to stakeholders, we listened to experts, and I want to remind the member opposite that it was her party that removed any references to LGBTQ2 rights, including anti-discrimination laws, from the Citizenship Guide. We will ensure that the new Citizenship Guide reflects all Canadians and not just a few.
It's getting much too noisy. Members have to remember that each side has their turn. And we can have confidence, I think, in the public to assess the questions and the answers. The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
Mr. Speaker, 6 months ago, the Health Committee reported to the Minister that Canada's thalidomide program needs to be revamped to include the forgotten survivors beyond the 25 that the government continues to reference. It's almost Christmas again, and these survivors are still suffering pain, discrimination, and humiliation. When will the minister show some compassion, do the right thing, and include the forgotten survivors in the compensation program?
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, our hearts go out to thalidomide survivors, and we remain deeply committed to offering the support that they need to live the rest of their lives with dignity and with respect. The Thalidomide Survivors Contribution Program is helping support 122 Canadian thalidomide survivors, 25 of whom were identified using the objective review process that was put in place to assess the eligibility of unconfirmed individuals. Mr. Speaker, we wish to acknowledge and thank the Health Committee for its important work on this matter. We are reviewing their important report, and we will be responding in very due course.
Honourable member for Humber River Black Creek.
Mr. Speaker, our government believes that the benefits of free trade should result in opportunities for all Canadians. Could the Minister of Finance update this House on what our government is doing to deliver on its commitment to allow for participation of unions in Canadian trade remedy proceedings?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member for Humber River Black Creek. Our trade agenda puts people at the center of what we do. In Budget 2017, we announced regulatory amendments to ensure that unions have the right to participate in trade remedy proceedings. New regulations will come into force early in 2018 and will require relevant unions to be identified in dumping and subsidy complaints and to explicitly identify trade unions as interested parties in various trade remedy proceedings. Canadian workers deserve to have a voice in these proceedings, and we are taking action to ensure that they are heard. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable member for Foothills.
Mr. Speaker, with Canada's $4 billion pulse industry in jeopardy, a Liberal trade mission to India, which did not include the Minister of Agriculture, came back empty-handed. Grain companies have stopped buying peas because of 50% duty. Pulse producers have lost $360 million, and they are facing some very difficult decisions as they prepare for next season. The Liberals bet Canada's farm when they went all in on China, and they lost. And now critical trade agreements, along with alternative market access, are in serious jeopardy. When is the Agriculture Minister going to start doing his job and start fighting to secure vital market access for Canada's pulse producers?
Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
We are extremely concerned and disappointed with India's increase in import duties of 50% on all peas without providing any advance notification. We are raising our concerns to the Government of India, including the recent trade mission led by the Minister of Trade, who raised this issue at every opportunity. And we will continue to work with our farmers to make sure that they get every opportunity possible. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Courtenay Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, the Newchannel people are eager to reconcile, but the Liberals keep fighting them in court. Newchannel fishers have waited since 2009 to exercise their right to catch and sell fish in their own territories. The courts, right up to the Supreme Court of Canada, have confirmed their right to do so, yet this government still does not honour their rights. The Liberals claim their most important relationship is with Indigenous people, so when will they prove they are serious about reconciliation? End this costly prosecution of the Newchannel people, and finally recognize their fishing rights.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Immigration.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And this is a renewed relationship from nation to nation, and this has to do with partnership, with respect for Indigenous peoples. We will be cooperating with the 5 nations in this area in order to ensure stability and operational stability in this area. Mr. Speaker, given that this is before the Superior Court of British Columbia, it would not be appropriate to comment at this time.
East.
Mr. Speaker, Canada 150 has been a rousing success, and no more so than in St. John's East, where we celebrated Canada Day for the 69th time with cultural events that brought us together as Canadians. Alors que Canada 150.
As Canada 150 winds down, a Pee Wee hockey team from my riding is very excited about being able to participate in the final celebrations on Parliament Hill. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Canadian Heritage talk to us about the successes of Canada 150? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for his question and for his excellent work. Last week, for the first time, we opened our temporary rink on Parliament Hill.
The hockey teams from coast to coast to coast will be here to compete in the Hockey on the Hill tournament. This will be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for these young players. We look forward to welcoming all Canadians as we close out the Canada 150 celebrations. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Citerments-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, with the decommissioning of the preserver and protector, there is a serious operating gap. This vulnerability has been recognized by a Liberal majority Defense Committee. The Astérix was brought in on time by Davy Shipwards. Now, the government has no excuse for not honouring its commitments and not obtaining this second boat, the Obélix.
With Canada's new defence policy, we're committed to making sure that we modernize our Canadian Navy. And as part of the national shipbuilding strategies, two permanent joint supply ships are required for our Navy. However, because of the previous cuts, there was a capability gap that was left. And then because of that, the interim capability gap is going to be filled, and Davie Shipyard has built the asterisk, Mr. Speaker, and we thank you very much for their tremendous work.
Honorable député de Pierre Boucher, les Patriotes Verchères.
Honourable member for Pierre Boucher, les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, the ears of the the Heritage Minister must be reddening. They are giving privileges to multinationals. The minister heard things, but she's not really listening. Voting Liberal means voting for just people who don't do anything. They're not, the fact that they're not taxing these things is not just an attack on our culture, but also on our economy. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, our government has always been clear. Our position has not changed. We do hear and are listening to the concerns of the cultural sector, and we are making historic investments in order to support our culture. More than $2.3 billion, which has been invested in the media fund, and this will have concrete repercussions for the lives of our artists. The Honourable Member for Joliette. Now, are we to understand that the Liberal government doesn't really want to pay attention to the consensus in Quebec? Mr. Speaker, the Finance Minister says he's flexible for sharing the cannabis tax revenue. Is he ready to share this tax unconditionally based on cost sharing? So 100% for Quebec, the provinces, and the municipalities, and for the federal government, zero. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Our senior officials have been meeting on this file for over 2 years. We share a consensus in every part of this country that the current system of cannabis control is failing our kids, enriching organized crime, and putting the health of Canadians at risk. We continue to remain committed to a respectful discussion with our provincial, territorial, and municipal partners to ensure that those who have responsibilities have the resources they need to fulfill those responsibilities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All that remains to be done now is a rubber stamp from the Investment Canada Act for one of Canada's largest construction companies, Aecon, to be sold to a state-owned enterprise of the People's Republic of China, the China Communications Construction Company, or CCCI. This company has a very troubling human rights, environmental, and safety record, and yet it has not come before this House. We're not hearing. I asked the Prime Minister, can he assure this place that this sale will be put to a thorough review before Investment Canada Act rubber stamps it?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, every proposed investment of this scale is examined on a case-by-case basis to ensure it is in Canada's best interest. This rigorous process is done in consultation with our national security agencies. When it comes to the health and safety of Canadian workers, this is an issue that we take very seriously. We're currently working with provinces and territories to improve occupational health and safety regulations, and we expect all companies operating in Canada to follow all provincial and federal regulations and make sure workers have a safe working environment.
Dépôt de documents, tabling of documents. House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 101.11.1, I have the honour to table in both official languages a certificate of nomination and biographical notes for the proposed appointment of Marion Dion to the position of Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner. I request that the nomination be referred to the Standing Committee on Access to Information, Privacy and Ethics. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Here we go.
You can see it now.